Oh, we are live. This should be fun. The AP poll is back. I think it's funny. This doesn't matter, but I think it's funny they're calling this the Week 9 AP poll because they technically skipped Week 9. Last week they didn't have a poll, and now I would think this is Week 10, but we're still on Week 9. So I guess they're just going on order here, not time. It makes it a little confusing.
I think it would create more confusion for me if they just went from
Week 8.
skipped one. Yeah,
Yeah,
then it would have
okay.
gone. What happened to the other one?
Okay, I can understand that, but no matter how you slice it, we've got 2 weeks of games. Although there wasn't a lot of games the week prior, in fairness, that the writers had to analyze. So I think there was a lot of things that they had to look at. We'll get to the poll in just a moment here, but the number one thing for me, and the reason why I chose the coaches for the thumbnail for this video is there hasn't been this week, and there hasn't been for it seems like a month now, any, if at all, much movement at the top of the AP poll. You've got Arizona, Michigan, Iowa State, and UConn. And I think as of right now, they are the clear top 4 teams in the country. There are other teams, don't get me wrong, we'll get to them, that could, break through that top 4 and be maybe not break through, but be a part of it. But as of right now, I think they're the clear top 4.
And I may even include Purdue, who's ranked 5, to say there's a clear top 5. Because I was looking at the scores at which they had beaten their last opponents, the 5 of them, and it was by 21, 30, 21, 16, 16, and then you get up to Duke where it's 4.
Yeah, I think the reason I don't have Purdue up there is because of when they played Iowa State, which was at home for Purdue, they lost by over 20. So that's why, to me, that's where I understand what you're saying in terms of the recent results. And when Purdue has played other teams, they have looked like they're in that echelon. But when they had the opportunity against Iowa State, it was not competitive. So
Okay.
all right. Before we get into the poll of the actual teams, I want you to read out the conferences. Like what are the overall themes here? Like who's represented the most in college basketball?
And before I even do that,
Make sure to like this video for if anybody's out there watching live. We appreciate you on a Monday when work has started. We appreciate you joining us. If you're ready, hit that subscribe button and let us know in the chat. What are you thinking from Week 9's AP poll? Go ahead.
alrighty. So the Big 12 has 7 teams in the top 25. 4 of the 7 teams are in the top 10. The Big 10 has 6 teams in the top 25, and they have 3 in the top 10. So 7 of the top 10 are just 2 conferences, which is pretty crazy. ACC and the SEC have 5 each, and that's a major. We always like to see the ACC improving.
Yeah.
And the fact that they have 5 now in the top 25, albeit not in the, other than Duke, not in the top 10, but they're creeping up there, and people also receiving votes in the ACC are Clemson, Cal.
Yep.
Yep, Miami. They receive minor votes, not enough to sort of attract enough attention, but another sign that the ACC is clearly coming back.
Yeah, and I'm glad you had those notes ready because my impression when I was looking through the poll was it's a lot more even this year. A lot more spread out in college basketball than last year where it seemed like half of the AP poll was the SEC. Now, but what you did illustrate there is it is more even across the top 25, but the top 10 is heavily concentrated in the Big 12 and the Big 10. So the SEC has certainly taken a big step back. The ACC is better, but the top teams are in the Big 12 and the Big 10, and I think it's been that way for really since December. So I mean, it's not we're not that far into January, but it's been kind of established. So let's jump into the poll. And as always with the AP poll, we got to work through the ads. So first 7 teams, I mean, largely unchanged here. Slide in there.
Coming in.
Arizona, Michigan, Iowa State, UConn, Purdue, Duke, unchanged, and rightfully so. None of these teams have lost. The only team that has been on the brink of losing here has been Duke on a couple of occasions. So if anybody, with the way they're playing right now, is going to drop from the top 6, it would be Duke. Houston moves up a spot. Gonzaga moved down a spot. They're very close in the points, but Houston coming off of their win over Cincinnati, so they moved up a spot. But
it's very interesting that the top 7 teams there, the number 1 votes are almost split evenly between Arizona and Michigan, and no one else receives a number 1 vote. So even among these 7 teams, Arizona and Michigan are the clear
top 2. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because it's literally 1 point that's separating the 2 teams at the top. Michigan seems like each week is picking up a couple points here, a couple points there. If Michigan keeps beating teams by 30 plus points, I do think they could pass Arizona. But it's not like Arizona's done anything. They beat their opponents by 20 plus points. So they're not doing anything wrong by any means. And to your point, while I said before there's a clear top 4, I think it's even more clear that there's a top 2. Yeah.
Yep.
Although I think UConn certainly has a case, and would have been very fascinating if they would have been healthy for the Arizona game. What would have happened there? But woulda, coulda, shoulda. Can't go back there. Rounding out the top 10, Gonzaga, BYU, Nebraska. I think gotta spend a moment here on Nebraska. One of the better stories in college basketball. They could get their first NCAA tournament win. They look very poised to do so. They're going to have a good seed as long as it continues to go on like this. And they're certainly one of the risers I had from this week's poll, coming off of a really nice home win over Michigan State. And one of the things I love personally is that their players said, their fans stormed the court, but their players said after the game they shouldn't have done that. And they hope moving forward, with how good of a team they are, with how highly ranked that they are, that their fans will not do that, because it wasn't like an upset win. They felt like, their fans should have kind of took it as more of a, not supposed to win this game, but it was at the time, a number 13 versus a 9. So an evenly matched game. So I personally like that. I understand if you don't, but personally I like that from Nebraska.
I still say, looking at it and seeing Nebraska there, I keep expecting that, what are they doing in Nebraska? Are they playing the games with footballs? Because I'm so used to Nebraska being a good football school, maybe not one of the best, but certainly a good, but not a top 10 basketball school. So this is actually pretty exciting to have someone new enter the top 10 and to do so convincingly at 14-0.
Yeah. They're 14-0. They're undefeated. Arizona, Michigan, Iowa State also undefeated. And then I think rightfully so at number 11, also undefeated, Vanderbilt, who is, they've got a big test coming up this week, which is going to be a lot of fun. We'll get to that once we get through the poll. But they've been another really awesome story in college basketball this year. Michigan State, one of the fallers this week. But no shame in losing to Nebraska by 2 points on the road. Both of their losses are within 2 possessions this year. So a really good program, Michigan State, really good team. Alabama and Texas Tech each moved up a spot. Alabama had a good win over Kentucky. Texas Tech also has a really big game coming up, and we'll get to that once we're done with the poll.
It's Michigan State. we know traditionally will have that fall,
Yeah.
and it hasn't occurred. And actually, the opposite. Coach Izzo has them playing really, really well, and the idea that they're still number 12, and as you mentioned, Jack, the loss is no shame in the loss that they just had. So, I expect at some point they could have that, fall from the top 10,
Well,
only to come back at the end of the season. But let's see.
yeah, they'll be in the Sweet 16 at the very least. I'm not worried about that for this Michigan State team. Although, having said that, I'm sure they'll get upset in the first round. But it's how it works. Arkansas, Illinois, North Carolina, Georgia, Iowa, Louisville, Tennessee are your 15 to 21. And here's where we saw a lot more of the movement in the
Big
top
movement.
25.
Huge.
You've got Arkansas, who had a big win over Tennessee, moving up 3 spots. Illinois, who had a good win over Penn State, but I believe the Missouri game was in the prior 2 weeks, and so that wasn't included in the previous poll. They beat Missouri by 40-plus points. They just crushed them. And I think that's more of the reason why they moved up 4 spots here. Georgia, not undefeated anymore, but they moved up 5 spots. They had a really good week as well. They had a crazy game where they beat Auburn 104-100 in overtime. And Iowa, coming off of a really solid win against UCLA, they had been like perpetually 25 or 26 for like 4 weeks in a row. Good to see them move up 6 spots. Those are the risers. Then you've got North Carolina sliding 5 spots after a tough road loss against SMU, where they end up losing by double digits. Both their losses this season are by double digits. So that's a little bit concerning as they get into tougher ACC play. And Louisville slides 4 spots. A little bit of an asterisk with Louisville. They're not healthy right now. They don't have their best player. So I think that's part of the reason for their slide. And then Tennessee, a couple spots as well after the Arkansas loss.
Iowa State and Iowa. It's really incredible. I mean, is it going to eventually become like the UNC Duke rivalry there? Where are you going?
It would help if they were in the same conference to really jazz that up.
I understand, but it's recruitment in the state. Which school are you going to?
Oh, okay. I see where you're going there. It's funny because Iowa State has brought in now Coach Ben McCollum at Iowa. He's new there, so we're not sure what his recruitment history is going to be because he's just been there 1 year. But I know Iowa State has brought in a number of players from like the Wisconsin area. Even going back before TJ Otzelberger, like a guy like Tyrese Halliburton came from Wisconsin. They've got like a Wisconsin pipeline going on there. But yeah, and they had a really close game a couple weeks back. It was Iowa State winning that one by 4 points, 66-62. One of Iowa State's, if not Iowa State's most challenging test of the season came at the hands of Iowa. So to your point.
Must have been a great game, and the fans must have just been crazy.
Yeah, that sounds like a good one. Kansas at 22, Virginia at 23, and then your new entrants, SMU and UCF. Kansas is the only other notable
Injuries, Peterson.
Yeah, Peterson just not being able to complete a game is really hurting this Kansas team. I think if he could ever stay healthy, they've had a lot of guys really develop nicely because he hasn't been able to play. Like Melvin Council in particular has really taken major steps forward. And so if he were to get healthy, I think this could be a top 10 type team because they're that good defensively. And Peterson is that good in terms of just being an offensive weapon. But at this point, we're in January. He hasn't really been able to complete a game in a couple of months. Like, it's hard for me to say that that's likely to happen.
No, but there's this crazy statistic where he has, he's not far off from scoring a point per minute.
Oh, yeah.
It is insane. But as you said, Jack, that's great. But if you can't stay on the court, what are you going to do? So that was great. The other thing I wanted to point out in terms of crazy scoring was Georgia. Georgia leads the country in points per game at 99.4. One more aggressive thing, and they're going to be averaging 100 points a game. So,
yeah, like I said before, 104-100 overtime win over Auburn in a game I couldn't believe went to overtime. Georgia was up by 4 with like 12 seconds to go. So it was pretty wild to see the finish there. Missed free throw, and then a tip, or not a tip in, but a quick shot tied the game for Auburn, and then Georgia went on to win in overtime there. The new entrants, SMU and UCF. Good for our ACC corner to get SMU in there. They're playing really well. Big win for them over North Carolina. They have a starting 5 that they really rely on, but they're starting to get a little bit more from their young bench. In particular, their freshman center, Jaden Toombs, who was a top 40 ranked recruit, came into the year hurt, has been working his way in. I think he really gives them a good option coming off of his best performance of the year against the Tar Heels. So,
Jack, was UCF one of the teams that Duke played earlier this year when you said, I don't know, this team's pretty good?
And they're 12-1. They beat Kansas. I know, Pearson didn't finish the game, but UCF was winning when Pearson was in the game. So it's not one of those things where, as soon as he got injured, then the game flipped. They were winning. And Coach Dawkins has gotten a lot out of the team. Riley Kugel had a good game. Jordan Burks, who played really well in the exhibition against Duke, has had a really good season for UCF. They've got a number of guys contributing there. And, good for Coach Dawkins. They lost basically their entire team after last year, in large part because they were chasing bags, going to get more money elsewhere. So for Coach Dawkins to revamp this team and have them, at least for this week, back in the AP Top 25 poll, real credit to him. One other faller, which I didn't mention because they're not in the top 25 anymore. That's Florida. The reigning national champions are no longer ranked. It is a tough fall from glory for Coach Todd Golden coming off of a 2-point loss to Missouri.
Wouldn't want to get them in the first round, though.
They make it. Yeah, as of right now, they're looking like a bubble team. But things can change, but they haven't got the guard play that I think they were hoping for.
And the only other thing of note is that Villanova really didn't miss out the 25 spot by much. It was only 5 points that separated them and UCF. And so look out for Villanova having a chance to break into the top 25.
Yeah, big gap after Villanova. The next points were Seton Hall at 31. So let's look ahead to... Adam Dowd is saying Duke 81, Louisville 78. That's perfect timing because we're going to get into the big games for this coming week. And I went through all the ranked-on-ranked matchups that we have coming up. So the first is Tuesday, the Duke-Louisville game. It's number 6, Duke, and number 20, Louisville. We just found out today Mikal Brown will not be playing in that one. Yesterday we did our prediction video. I said he would be playing. So I mean, it's a minor thing, but I got that one wrong. I thought they would make sure he'd be back. I predicted Louisville would win that game with Mikal Brown. He's not playing. I'm very tempted to switch, but I don't think that's right. I think I have to ride it out, unfortunately. But it's a big deal.
It's much easier for me, who was completely waffling between who would win. So
you look good now.
It may turn out that Duke does have a chance to win this game, but I hate that as we were talking about, I hate to see them win it without Mikal.
Yeah, and what I really wish I would have done that I did earlier in the year with the Kansas game was I gave my Duke, Kansas prediction with Peterson and without, and that's what I should have done in this scenario with Mikal Brown, but I didn't. It's too late. We got to move forward. The biggest game, though, I think Yeah, I'm having a tough time between this and the next game. One of the two biggest games of the week for sure for me. Tuesday night at 9 o'clock, Texas Tech, which is number 14, faces Houston, number 7. That is going to be a great matchup to look out for. And then Wednesday night, I had to just check the numbers here. I forgot to write this down. Wednesday night, we're going to have at 9 o'clock this or Texas Tech Houston, biggest game of the week. Make sure you watch it. For us, this is the game. For me, that'll be the biggest game because we'll be doing our post-game show during Texas Tech Houston, so we'll miss at least the first half there. But Alabama, number 13, takes on Vanderbilt, number 11, in their biggest test. Two teams that like to get up and down, shoot the three ball. I think
we may have to set up another TV here or something.
Well, that's Wednesday.
Okay,
but you're saying for Texas Tech Houston,
I mean,
yeah,
it's hard
to
miss
idea.
These games, and it's nice to have them on the. Which was the game? Was it the game you were just referring to that kept going to overtime? That resulted.
No. That was Virginia Tech. That was a great game. It started off as kind of an ugly
triple
game.
Overtime?
Triple overtime.
And we, in order to watch the Duke game, we had to set up a small, a laptop in front because ESPN, rightly so in this case, didn't change away from that. That game was great.
It was a great game.
What else you got this week?
We have one more comment from Swisher. Glad we didn't get Xavier Lee. Yeah, that's a good point. And Texas Tech will take that, but it's a true road game for Texas Tech. Good point. Good point, Swisher. Yeah, and then I don't know. Houston's good, man, but their defense is not what it has been with all these freshmen. So it's a good. I think Christian Anderson's going to have an opportunity there. Darius Acuff had a really good game against them. I think Anderson could have similar type performance, but I wonder if Houston's bigs can take away what Toppin does, and that's one thing I'm curious about. Then Saturday. Duke is in. There's 5 ranked-on-ranked matchups this week. Duke's in 2 of the 5. SMU takes on Duke in Cameron, and what breaks up Duke's 4 games out of 5 on the road. That's their one home game in that stretch. And then Sunday, to be determined. We don't even know what time this game is. Number 16, Illinois, goes on the road to take on Iowa, number 19. That is going to be a really good game. 2 really good offensive teams. I think that should be a lot of fun to watch. Any final thoughts here, JD?
No. I love that you're filling it in. It's going to be tough because, being here in New York, there has not been an NFL season. And so Saturday, Sunday, and Monday are the wild card games. And so there's actually some good football to watch. Although... Sorry, completely offline. If anyone watched the end of the Ravens-Steeler game, it was absolutely one of the craziest finishes of just pure offense. It was just great. And some really bad kicking. But on the other hand, that's football.
Yeah, and a couple more from Swisher before we sign off. VT is good this year. They sure are. Avdalis, Hansberry, Hammond, who played with Darren Harris and Gangba at Paul VI, really good guard. SMU versus Clemson. I was looking at that game. Clemson is just not ranked, so didn't mention it there. That should be a fun one. Duke, Clemson, SMU, and Miami are undefeated in conference play. SMU plays Clemson, and Miami goes to Wake.
So this is VT being Virginia Tech.
Yes.
As opposed to in days past, it was the Catamounts of Vermont.
I don't know how you pulled that one out.
I don't know how I pulled that one out. It was in the file cabinet somewhere, and I pulled it out. But I think it was, and occasionally they would break in, and that's, I think I have it right, that they would know the Catamounts. But
all right, well, with that being said, we will see you guys post-game. We'll see you, Swisher, post-game after the Louisville-Duke matchup tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. Until then, peace.